Welcome to Into the Unknown with Mike and John, Season 1, Episode 4.
4?
Coming up. I know it, can you believe it? So coming up, we cover a Sykesville ghost that lodges in your dreams. No kidding. I'm Mike Duber.
And I'm John Fitzpatrick. You told me to be excited.
And that works.
Did it work?
It works.
I didn't break the microphone,
This is a story to get excited about. No,
okay.
you did not. And we did not. And I can pull, the magic of post-recording editing.
All right.
I can sweeten the deal here.
We'll get to the story, Mike.
We'll get to the story. Let's do it right now. So, the story of Howard Lodge is in part the story of an old house, okay? And it really is typical. It's what you'd expect from a house with a history. There are a series of owners. There are tax records to read.
Tax records? That gets me so excited!
Land bequeathments and so forth.
That quivers my lawyer bones! Tax
I don't know if
records.
we're going to get through this. I'm stuck on, you had me at tax records. You had me at foreclosure. Oh, that sounds kind of nasty, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay, so and indeed, this house does have significant and interesting historical value, and it is interesting. The age, the type of house, the condition of the house, for as old as it is, any local historian would love to dive into this, and we're historians of a sense, and we dove into it.
I sometimes think that I'm doing a history podcast tinged by the paranormal, and you're doing a paranormal podcast tinged by history.
I take exception to that. Ancient history. Thank you. Ancient history.
Okay.
Well, folks, we're not interested in its typical history. We're interested in its paranormal elements. It's ghost story. So we're going to share with you how each living owner in recent history experienced the soul, or spirit, if you will, of the house, and how in some cases that spirit reaches out to some past occupants beyond the property boundaries. But first, John, first. This is our first Into the Unknown ghost story. So by way of a kickoff, I just wanted to share that, I'm no expert in ghosts, and I repeat a lot of the history and the lore that I hear, right? Like, the different ideas that, this is a ghost in torture and it stayed behind because there's a purpose or there's unresolved, all of those types of things. And I hear them and I repeat them because it's the currency of discussion.
Right. Why are people experiencing this? What is
Exactly.
here?
Yeah.
Why does it repeat? Why are all the ghosts dressed in Victorian garb and none of them are dressed,
That's right.
like a valley girl from the 80s?
You have like a clock watch.
Oh my God.
Right. Yeah, the Haunted Mall. Well, that's, I think that's season 3.
But let me make a note.
Haunted Mall.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can find one.
And I will admit to a
Marley
fascination.
Station's looking pretty haunted these days.
So is Hunt Valley.
Yes.
It's a shame. I loved them all. Columbia, thank God it's still there. But I will admit a passing fascination with the ghost shows. I sampled them heavily. Honestly, it was, you almost have to sample some topics, take the good with the bad and sample and look for patterns and threads of truth and so forth. And so, I've got opinions on EMF detectors and the SLS camera, as a gamer.
I have a lot of opinions, some of which I'm technically not allowed to talk about.
Right. Yeah. So I just thought it'd be fun to just sort of let our listening audience know that, I'm no expert, but I've heard a lot. I will talk about a lot of things. I would appreciate comments back. If that is something that we eventually do, is get comments on episodes, be nice, but certainly, school me, as I'm open for it. But, so with some footing in mind, let's continue. Per our founding podcast premise, John, Howard Lodge is indeed a local Maryland story, very local. In fact, It's Sykesville Monster Site local.
Yes, it's very close to our undisclosed location, is it not?
It is.
Yeah.
And no, we will not cross the streams. Pretty good reference.
I see what
We
you
won't
did there.
Cross the
I
streams
see what you did there.
of the monster and the house, right? We didn't find any connections, and to be frank, we didn't look. Okay, so how close? Less than 6 miles south of here in Howard County on Howard Lodge Road stands Howard Lodge.
I have a feeling it's been standing there since before the road.
I
Or at
think
least
they
the
had to name the house what the name of the road was. So I think that you don't think so.
I think it's the other way around. Okay.
Believe it or not, it sits on Howard Lodge Road. Yep, and it's 6 miles from here. This Federal and Greek Revival style house stands 2.5 stories and was built probably between 1745 and 1750. It just seems funny, probably, but that's just the way it goes. A lot of these records of constructions may have been lost to time, but they think it was certainly standing by 1760, but we'll give it 1745 and 1750. And this makes it quite old by United States standards. Certainly not the oldest in Maryland, but old. I think the oldest is like
old.
1650, and it's in Calvert County.
Oh, you did.
That's
good research.
Yeah.
You've warmed the historian part of my heart now, too. You were touching... I don't want to say that. Go on.
Touching your heart, well, it's entanglement, right? There's not actually touching anyone.
Yeah, sorry. Go on.
Okay. Well, the house is also well preserved. And again, I did say it has some interesting aspects. So it has a mixture of Flemish and English brick bonds. If you care about brickwork descriptions in architecture, some do.
Some do.
Yep. These were ballast bricks from England, John, unloaded in Baltimore, then eventually used in many of the colonial structures in the state, including Howard Lodge. Edward Dorsey of the ubiquitous Dorsey clan of Carroll, Howard, and Anne Arundel counties built and lived in the house with his wife, Elizabeth Betty
Dorsey. Yes, we
Dorsey.
determined that earlier.
Yes.
Nee
Gillis. Yeah. So we've run across the Dorseys before. Dorsey is a well-known name in Maryland, and many descendants still live in the area. You may recall the Dorsey family descendants from our Sykesville Monster episode. Family members witnessed the creature breaking into a cellar on Oklahoma Hill, west of downtown Sykesville.
I do recall this. I'm going to let you continue for a little while, and then I'm going to point out the elephant in the room if you don't.
Yeah. Let's see. I get to it a little bit further down.
Okay.
But Howard Lodge was accepted to the National Register of Historic Places in 2012. Another interesting aspect, and that's really no surprise there.
It was the brickwork that really
It was the Flemish bond.
The Flemish bond.
So impressive.
Brickwork, yes.
You ever seen a well-executed Flemish bond? Let me tell you, it does things for you. So, like a brick house. Well, the Historic Register edition in 2012 was thanks to the efforts of the current owners, Bernard Rauscher and Francesca Galbani. They're still there. We did not contact them. We don't plan to contact them. But
if you're listening, contact us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you would be. Yeah.
I mean, we kind of like to go in and look around.
Just see.
I mean, you let those other people in for the TV show.
Right. They were.
At least we live here.
Looked like
we
nice
care.
people. Yeah.
We care about your
We're
house.
locals.
That's right.
We're locals. So Jacqueline Emery, who we feature later, just, pin alert, she gets credit for the majority of the modern 20th century renovations executed when she lived there from 1959 to 1973. So it had been run down, and we'll get a little bit into that, and then she brought it back to life. Again, she features heavily later on. That's Jacqueline Emery. She gets a pin.
Pin.
In the day, Howard Lodge was a 500-acre plantation, and we know of at least 7 slaves to have lived on the property. Others may be on record, but we're not aware of them. And incidentally, the Dorseys on Oklahoma Hill and Sykesville, I think it might be known that these are descendants of slaves from the area, possibly from Howard Lodge. I know you did a little bit of research.
I did very little, to be honest. And this is one of those things where history's messy. People are messy. I think the fairest thing that can be said is I'm 99% sure, based on circumstance, that these two branches of the Dorseys are somehow related. How related, I don't really want to know in some ways.
Well, the Dorseys are ubiquitous. There are a lot of Dorseys. There could be
right.
multiple ways that the families are
But
connected.
I suspect that given the locations and some of the other circumstances about the property ownerships and where the people are, that these two branches are somehow related. Whether they're actual family or not is pure speculation. And that's a dangerous thing to get into without really.
Yeah, well, we don't want to say anything that's just not true.
No,
I think I ran across
there's
a
some
couple of elements that we knew that when we were looking at the Sykesville monster history and so forth. But anyway, I mean, slavery is an element of Howard Lodge's history. This is Maryland after all, and as John said, it's slavery was messy. That's an understatement. People are messy.
People are messy. Slavery was awful.
It was awful. So it was once a grim reality in the state. But I'll add, surprisingly, it's not part of the paranormal elements of the story as far as we know. So, well, we're going to return to this a little later. So that gets a pin too. So Jacqueline Emery gets a pin, and this story gets a pin. And so many owners, John, many lives passed through Howard Lodge, its halls and doorways over the years, and across the vast grounds where 200-year-old boxwoods still grow, apparently. And man, I love me a boxwood. They smell good too. And again, we're not here to discuss the typical, right? A lot of this is typical history, and I don't want to go too much into that, but
we're setting the stage. This is an old house.
We're about to pivot.
It's a large house. It's been fairly well kept over the. Well, actually, that's not true. I did find some interesting history about how there were periods where it was in disuse and abused. And it has and as you mentioned, Jacqueline Emery in the 60s, basically 60s and 70s, put a lot of work in to restore the house.
It was the 50s and 60s.
I think you set that scene very well. That we're at a house that's seen a lot of Maryland.
There's a lot of Maryland history. But we're not here to discuss that history, at least not today. By far, it's the multiple paranormal elements, and John, these elements abound. Perplexing, even startling. Visual evidence now exists. Mists, presences, interesting living characters who possibly continue interaction, in a matter of speaking, with the spirits of the house, despite not having lived there for years. There is even a Ouija reference, and we'll get to all of it.
We're
going
to
pin that too, right?
Yep.
That's another one.
We'll pin the Ouija board.
Looping them in. All right, one last thing. So I would be remiss if I did not mention, I wouldn't be remiss if I did not say, you're gearing up to be excited.
That look on my face. I'm sorry to distract you.
No,
okay.
It's fine. I mean, this is great. Okay, I would be remiss if I did not mention this story, and most of the details comes to us through the hard work of a few folks before us. These are people extremely worthy of credit. I lean heavily on Hans Holzer's investigation. He was a noteworthy parapsychologist who operated mainly from the 50s through 2009.
Yeah.
That's a lot of coverage.
It's a long time.
Yeah. And he died in 2009. So presumably he lived, he died working. So the guy was really prolific. I think you did some work on Hans a little bit there.
Yes, I did. Did you want me to give the brief biography of who he was?
Yeah, let me jump down a minute because let me introduce these other folks and then we'll get into Hans because
let's introduce our cast of characters because they are entwined.
They are,
and I think that's one of the more interesting things.
And I did have a planned pit stop for Hans.
Okay.
So I also reference heavily from the more recent paranormal investigator Dave Schrader and his team, psychic medium and automatic scribe Cindy Kaza, and technical expert Shane Pittman. of the Holzer Files television show crew. They partnered with Gabe Roth, his brother, Eli from the Inglourious Bastards.
Really?
Yep, they're brothers.
Oh, see, I did not know that.
So Gabe and Eli are very into paranormal elements. Eli put together some shows, but anyway, we're off track.
Okay. No, we're going to you and I are putting a pin in that for later.
That sounds
We're
good.
going to talk because I did not know any of that. You found a rabbit hole I didn't.
Oh yes. Okay. Well, you probably missed it. It's right in your face. Eli is the impetus behind certain shows that have been on recently. So
okay.
Yeah. Wow. And then finally, Hans's daughter, Alexandra Holzer, plays heavily in the show. She is there to represent and adds very interesting color about her dad and things that he thought and said through the years. So it's fabulous what they've done with Hans's work and having her pull it forward. So they investigate the house. Again, what I'm talking about, the Holzer file, folks. They investigated the house in early 2019 for their television show, The Holzer Files. That's what it's called. You can find it on, I think it's HBO Max has their programs. Probably some other places.
I think it's also available on YouTube and at least some of the episodes.
Some parts. I think they want to send you to the streamer, but you can get part of the shows. Yeah.
It's available out there. So if you're interested, and you should be.
You should. Well, later on, I'll point you right to the episode. So we pulled some interesting parts from it, as it's part of the history now. Frankly, I just will tell them. I'm sure they already know it's history. You're their part of the history. So these folks get some tangential coverage as characters, as John says. Right, these are characters in our little play today, as they have brought so much energy and interaction to the story. I mean, it's just true. And their television episode tells one aspect of the tale very well. Okay, for now, it's a place to start. So let's dive in.
Let's dive in.
So paranormal experiences at Howard Lodge probably happened well before the 1950s and 60s. But in 1969, that's when it came to light and into the public eye after famous investigator Hans Holzer conducted his one and only investigation of Howard Lodge. And here is where we pit stop on Hans Holzer to discuss him and his importance as a paranormal investigator. So, John, tell us what you learned. And then if you see there's a quote there that I think is interesting. It kind of tells a little bit of a picture of him.
Let me look ahead real quick. Do you want me to start with the quote?
Yeah, start with the quote.
Let's start with the quote. So this is Hans's views. Holzer believed in life after death and the existence of ghosts, spirits, and stay-behinds. Ghosts, according to him, were imprints left in the environment which could be picked up by sensitive people. Spirits were intelligent beings who could interact with the living, while stay-behinds, a third category, were those who found themselves earthbound after death. He also believed in reincarnation and the existence of levels of consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's worth mentioning for those unfamiliar with him. At the risk of being redundant for the paranormal mavens that hopefully we're gathering here and listening, until I stumbled across the show bearing his name, I had no idea who that was. I'd not heard of him.
That's interesting. That was the part that interested me. And I went back and I looked into him, and I was like, because, actually, let me back up. The first thing I did was go down and look on my shelf and see what have I got in the collection. On my legendary paranormal bookshelf
that you bought while in a trance.
Paranormal bookshelf.
And
okay, and what I found was one book by poor Hans Holzer. It is The Lively Ghosts of Ireland.
But you had one.
I had one.
Okay, and you don't remember it, right?
No, I remember buying it just last year in a fit of sheer serendipity. It was the only paranormal book on the shelf in the book plate in Chestertown, Maryland, which is one of. So
you were out and about.
We were out and about. Yes, that's my secret life. Yes, we'll just. I won't go down that rabbit hole right now. But yes, Julie, my wife, and I went to Chestertown to see the daughter, and we always make a pit stop in the book plate.
Of course.
So this is where the book was. But I digress. Hans Holzer. So I was curious at that point, like, well, okay, I have heard of him. And when I look at the book, he seems familiar. And the book is written in a very engaging style. So I then went to Amazon next because I was curious, well, what else is out there?
Right.
The man has over 120 books.
Yeah.
And they're not all in print, but they are all available on
Right.
Amazon, some of them as downloadable Kindle books. So you can get almost all 120 of his books if you want them. And then I said to myself, well, who was this guy and why is he not as famous as he could be now? And that's when I went down the road. So, of course, as most people do, I went to Wikipedia, because I thought, well, let me
That's
start.
where I started.
Let's start there.
I needed a place to start.
I can look at their references and I can see what else. And then after that, I did do some other internet research, but it was also often regurgitating the same facts. And then the other thing that I'm finding interesting is that we are beginning to be in conversation with these investigators and with other podcasts as well. So there were a couple of other podcasts that I excuse me, found out there and listened to them as well and their takes on things. So let's talk about who Hans Holzer was. He was known as the ghost hunter, which was a term he coined for himself, but it's stuck. He was once a legend in the paranormal. The man was born in 1920 in Vienna, Austria. He attended the University of Vienna, and he studied archaeology and ancient history. I like this guy.
He would have liked the Flemish and English, the running bonds.
I'm sure he looked at the architecture.
It was not lost on him.
Those are some magnificent Flemish
He's
bonds.
like, Jacqueline, I love your bonds.
Yeah. But unfortunately, given the time, his family was Jewish, so they fled Austria in 1938, came to the United States, and settled in New York City, where he continued his education at Columbia University and studied, of course, Japanese.
Oh,
I mean, that makes total sense, right? Clearly, he's a man of many interests.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's I don't want to be unfair to the guy, but it's unclear whether he earned his bachelor's degree. It seems like he did. He did make a claim later on to have earned a PhD in comparative religion and parapsychology. The PhD granting institution was the London College of Applied Science. And unfortunately, some of the researchers I ran into said, well, that's a diploma mill. But I don't want to focus on controversy here. The man clearly did decades of field research. And really, while it's interesting to look at parapsychology as an academic discipline and say there are some institutions that will teach it, and in fact, Hans Holzer taught parapsychology at the New York Institute of Technology for a long while. What really counts as expertise in that field? I don't know.
Well, he was a field investigator, so he was at these places. Look, there's a reason we're pulling on his investigation.
Right.
He was in the building.
Right.
He was there. So
he had a couple of other interests. And I do want to go down this a little bit because I think it gives a full flavor of who Hans was.
Sure.
He was trained as an archaeologist, so he got interested in psychic archaeology.
Sort of keep talking, I'll think of it. It's like psychometry.
Yes, in some ways. It's the use of psychic powers, including divination and dowsing, to explore ancient sites. So psychometry, I'm sure, would come into place, although he never claimed to have any psychic powers himself. I'm sure that since he did work with psychics frequently, handing psychics an artifact found at a site, blah, blah. And I know that was part of his
Interestingly, I think Cindy on the Holzer team is a psychometrist as well, in addition to an automatic scribe. So, yeah.
He was also known for writing 3 episodes, but I only think I have the information on 2. I know what it is. He is in 3, but he is in 2 episodes of the classic series In Search Of.
Right, yeah.
And in fact, he's on the 2nd episode, Strange Visitors, which is a psychic archaeology episode about Mystery Hill, New Hampshire.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Now that's a place that I have been to.
American Stonehenge.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought you had.
It's in Salem, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Yeah. We went there after or prior to visiting Salem, Massachusetts.
Yep.
And we stayed in Gloucester.
Gloucester.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's where the boats.
Did you
that
have
went
lobster?
out, we did.
Did you have the lobster?
We did. We had lots of
I might
lobster.
have to try
It was
that
good.
later.
Lobster from Gloucester.
Okay. The other thing he's really well known for is his investigation of the Amityville Horror. And this, I think, gets into why...
Yeah.
I want to mention this because I think it gets into why he falls away, why... It's very interesting. So he first engaged the Amityville Horror story in January 1977, at the height of the excitement after the Lutz family, the infamous Lutz family, vacated the premises. And he first visited the house with a spiritual medium named Ethel Myers.
That's one of his main allies.
Yep. And Myers claimed the house was built over an ancient Native American burial ground, and it was visited by the angry spirit of a Shinnecock Indian chief named Rolling Thunder.
Oh my goodness! Okay.
Rolling Thunder, and that Rolling Thunder had possessed Ronald DeFeo, it drove him to murder the family, which is carts, horses here.
Yeah.
The DeFeo family murders by the son Ronald DeFeo came before the Lutz family, who moved in because they were able to buy the house for a song.
Right.
Then the Lutz family moves out because of the haunting poltergeist type activity, and then Holzer starts to come in. And, it's not just Holzer. There are a number of them. In fact, that's the other interesting thing. So he's operating at the same time as the Warrens.
Okay. Yeah. So they have a lot of scorn heaped on them for different reasons.
But we still talk about the Warrens today, but we don't talk about Holzer as much. And the difference, I think, goes back to what we were saying with the ghosts and the spirits. And Holzer's, whatever his academic limitations were, whatever his limitations in terms of his research,
having a piece of paper in his hand. Okay.
Right. Well, not just the piece of paper, but some of his investigations. They're not. They do rely heavily on the psychic and the historical research. They're not. They're not technical in the way we see them today, with the people going in with all the equipment.
Well, I would argue that the technology wasn't there for him.
Correct.
And if it was, this is something that's in a defense contractor's shed, not a not you can't go to Amazon and order an EMF detector.
But his whole,
like you can now.
Right. So his whole attitude was to go in, respect the house in his way, after his fashion.
Talk to the spirit.
And try to move them on in a gentle way.
I'm glad you said that.
And he said, and that's part of the Holzer Files show.
It is.
As well, as they talk about, you should move on.
Right. That's right.
I have to remind them that they're dead and tell them to move on. Whereas the Warrens go in and they go, this place has demons.
Oh, I thought.
And we've got to exorcise it. And it's evil.
And for the low price of $9.99.
You're right. I will exorcise it. And they did.
Right.
So Ed Warren would claim to be a demonologist and exorcist and would go in very showmanship fashion, exorcise the place, throwing the holy water everywhere.
Times change, but boy, they stay the same. I mean, that's sort of
my point.
That's my point. That's the scorn heaped on the movement that all of the spiritualist movement that this comes from, right? You've got the seances that some perhaps legitimate, others are just scam artists going and preying on women who miss their dead child.
Yeah. But of the two approaches, which one is going to have longevity? Clearly the one that is more bombastic,
right?
More, every time you turn around, there's going to be evil there. You got to look out for that. So I think that's, and then of course that makes for better movies. So when the Warren, I don't think the movies started, the Conjuring series, they may have started while the Warrens were still alive now that I think about it. But they could sell that story a lot better to Hollywood than Holzer did. Although if you go back and watch Poltergeist, the medium in that movie acts much more like Holzer, trying to get the spirits to move on, to recognize you're dead, go elsewhere. You have no claim on Carol Ann. And says to the little girl, Carol Ann, you aren't dead. You have to come back here. Don't go towards the light. Much more of the Holzer fashion than the Warren one, even though it's kind of mixed together. And they're, it's just interesting to see how these paranormal themes run in pop culture.
And the roots of them.
Right, right. I should finish with the Amityville horror point before I move on. So the Amityville Historical Society took some issue with Holzer's findings, saying, dude, the Shinnecock people didn't live here. The original native peoples on this land were the Montaukett. So we don't know where Rolling Thunder comes into play here. But
rolled out of town, maybe.
The psychic, people moved. I don't know. I'm just gonna say.
Well, where did he get his information?
Psychic, apparently.
Hans did, but where did this civil servant get his information? So So there was a disagreement there with Hans, and Amityville was fraught with a lot of. And actually, I had one time had some knowledge on it, but it has faded.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well,
what's legitimate?
Spoiler alert: the Lutz family eventually does come clean and say, "Hey,
we made it all up.
We made it all up because even though we got the house for a song, we were underwater on that, and we had to find a way out of it.
Yeah,
and we cooked that up with." Jay Anson, I think, was the author, and their lawyer.
Okay.
And
bringing in the law again. Can we read tax records next?
Yes, we can.
Yes. I'm so excited.
No, they cooked it. I think the story says we cooked it up over a couple of bottles of red wine and
of course
a good dinner.
Of course, there's always alcohol but in stupid decisions.
It is the story that keeps on giving. Lots of people have gotten rich over to the Amityville horror. I don't know that the Lutz family
did its job today. It gave to us today. Well, speaking of houses, that bought for a song, I'm sure it needed some, crime scene remediation. Let's get back to our story. Did we cover Hans effectively, do you think? Do we need to touch on anything else?
I will say his IMDb page, because he did write those episodes of In Search of.
Yeah.
It has a cute trivia item.
Okay.
It says he remains a resident of New York City. Because he's buried there. He remains a resident.
Oh, that's good.
I just thought, I was
Is he really haunting anywhere?
I see what you did there.
Yeah, that's clever. That's clever.
That's
I like
cute.
it.
That's cute.
I like it.
All right.
Well, great. Well, thanks, John. I when we were texting and I heard you like, oh, this is interesting. I knew what was happening, so I knew there would be a spot for that. So thank you.
Hans is an interesting guy. I suspect, given his voluminous writing and work, we are going to encounter him again. And frankly, he seems so much more charming than the Warrens, so I don't think we're going to be able to avoid either. But he clearly lives in an enchanted world, and he wants to, and that's fine.
I think that's where the magic is.
Exactly.
Frankly.
He just seems so much better a companion on these trips.
To be genuine and non-bombastic. But all right, so let's. It's a dark and stormy night, John. It's a dark and stormy. Oh no, actually, that's not the intro I needed. The year is 1969. Jacqueline Emery, remember? Pin Pop? Jacqueline Emery is the current owner of historic Howard Lodge. She has recently completed a substantial restoration of the building. We learn from Chris Emery, her son. All right, he'll play heavily, but she has a son. It's Chris Emery, and later Chris Emery is somebody that gets spoken to about the house, but we're learning about him now in the beginning of the story. Chris Emery, her son, says hillbillies lived on the property, keeping livestock in the house. It was in a terrible state when they purchased it, so you can imagine the work that was required. And she brought it back to its original colonial charm. Clever listeners will know why I underlined the restoration. But let's keep going. Hans Holzer is contacted by Jacqueline Emery. Remember, in this time, Hans was someone that you would approach to perform an investigation. There was a little bit of cachet he had as an investigator, and so this is a logical thing to do. She requests him to come and investigate strange experiences in the house. Hans agrees. Hans Holzer typically worked with a medium, Ethel Myers, who you mentioned, or Sybil Leek was another one. She was a character. But on this occasion, he investigated alone. Reason unknown. I don't think even Alexandra knows, and it wasn't mentioned in the episode. Nonetheless, Emery reported the following. She believed there were 5 spirits in the house, based on an earlier visit from 2 sensitives. Jacqueline told Holzer that in 1966, she became aware of a man on the landing. And she's quoted as saying, "I know it is a man, although I've never seen him. I'm absolutely convinced he's a man in either his late 40s or early 50s, and in addition, he's from the 18th century, because in my mind's eye, I can see him." She also reported hearing footsteps on the stairs. A foggy mist appears on the landing and in other rooms. Current tense. It's a hint.
Yeah. Present tense, yes.
Present tense. There are strange smells, although the type is unknown, not reported. There is also the spirit of a baby. Jacqueline is quoted as saying, "I heard breathing. It was in the master bedroom. The breathing came from the right side on the bed, right side of the bed, below, as if a child would have slept in a trundle bed. There's not a mother in the world who would not recognize the breathing of a child when it's sick and has a fever. That child cries and has pain." She believed there was also a woman in the room, but that's all we know about her. She said dogs alerted, they barked, despite there being nothing to bark at, so the dogs sensed something. She claimed there was a rocking chair that rocked on its own. It's worth mentioning the Holzer Files team psychic, Cindy, picks this up, and that the Terry boy also experienced that in his attic room. The Terry family also owned the house after the Emerys, but we'll get to Terry too. Some family members saw a phantom boy in the yard. So it's interesting to note Cindy receives images of a boy running up and down the stairs. So there is some alignment here between what Jacqueline told Hans and what the Holzer File team discovers. Her son, that's Jacqueline Emery, her son Chris, and apparently Holzer himself encountered a malevolent spirit in the basement who said to Hans, "You are standing on my grave." Everyone generally has bad experiences in the basement. Graves in the basement is picked up by virtually everyone who's gone through there. Although I will note a little bit of misalignment. Chris Emery has said that he never really encountered anything down there, although he did not like the basement. Anyway, we'll get to some of that. So Holzer, who did not claim to be psychic, said while he was investigating, he was overcome by intense negative feelings while in the house. It is further reported by his daughter Alexandra, he did not snap out of it until he left the property. He had cut the investigation short. But Holzer continued investigating the history of the house and those who lived and died on the property. Ultimately, Hans concluded the apparition on the landing was Elizabeth Betty Dorsey, who died alone in the home while waiting for her husband and son to return from war. With his theories in mind, Hans wrote to Jacqueline Emery, hoping to return with a medium to confirm what he'd learned. But Jacqueline wrote back, "I am flattered by the attention you pay to me and my house out here in the woods, but I am afraid I must decline your offer. The spirits of Howard Lodge pose no danger to me and my family. In fact, we are contented with the haunting and perfectly happy to carry on." Enter the Holzer Files team and the television crew.
Now, wait. Before we do that, let me just stop you there.
They come bursting in.
Yeah, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. No.
With EMF detectors.
Yes. Our chief weapons are
interrogation.
Does it strike you as funny that she says, please don't come back?
It absolutely does. It strikes literally everyone. So I did have a section where, while watching the program, they have the letter. It's a typewritten letter. I presume it's a retyping, but basically they flash it on the screen as Gabe is reading from it. And I paused it and read what I could find elsewhere in the document above and, the context around this statement that she makes.
Okay.
I prefer not to go down to the rabbit hole here, but we do touch upon it later. We do. There is a reaction to her thought of him not coming back.
So
let's not spoil it.
Do you want me to? Okay,
let's
all right.
keep going.
I'll just keep going in case I do have
pin
it.
your thought.
I will pin my thought.
Pin your thought. I know where you're going.
Remind me I have one.
But you'll know immediately.
Okay.
All right. So as we said, back to the action. Enter the Holzer Files team and the television crew. Hans's daughter, Alexandra Holzer, Gabe Roth, brother of Eli Roth. We covered that.
Yes, we did.
The TV episode, Season 2, Episode 10.
Season 2, Episode 10?
I know. They're so far ahead of us. Their episode opens on using excerpts from that very letter and actual recordings of Jacqueline Emery to great effect. So what I'm saying is they open the season episode, they read from her letter, and they're all aghast. They focus on her claims as to justify opening the case again. They focus on the interesting fact that Emery does not invite Hans back. Alexandra Holzer explains Hans respected her wishes that he not return. He had no choice, but he never forgot the Howard Lodge case. Interestingly, we learn from the Holzer team, Hans left a note on the file that read, "By her own will or the spirits." So in other words, did Jacqueline Emery not want Hans to come back, or was it the spirits who did not want this? This is not your house. You died. So those words I've just read, it tells us how Hans feels about this very thing. That quote is from a recording of Hans. It's his actual voice, and it's invoked at the start of each episode. And however true, apparently not everybody feels the need to send spirits packing and to reclaim their space. And so on this premise, the Holzer team reopens the Howard Lodge case. So did we scratch your itch there, John?
No, not entirely.
What else did you have in mind?
We did walk into the
yeah.
That. So Jacqueline Emery. Right in. Jacqueline Emery is she is an immigrant from Europe, and she's actually petty nobility.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been suggested, although not necessarily by somebody close to her, it's just been suggested that one of the explanations here is she's used to this. She lived as a child in Europe in houses that were older than the country. For years, if a house didn't have a good ghost story, her family wasn't likely to live in it, type thing.
Yeah,
it's like
so. It's interesting. You brought that up.
This is just normal to her, and she's like, "Let them be. Why are you trying to chase them
out?"
Well,
right. And so I think
it's just a different philosophy.
I'm glad you said that. I had I removed a portion where I suggest that, and it says in the letter, although these, and I'm trying to piece together what I could read from the letter, but it says, although these are not these spirits are not members of my family, I have to live here, and if I run them off, right, that's not exactly. Not exactly warm and welcoming, right? Yeah. So she felt as though that the idea that, that, hey, what happens if you can't get them out of here? Now you've stirred them up, you've made them angry, and I'm responsible. I brought in someone that tried to run them off.
But
that's her viewpoint, perhaps.
Is this where you want to get back to the fact that she may have stirred them up herself with the restoration?
Well, no, we don't want to get into that here. But we ask all the questions.
I'll pin it.
We'll pin it. There's a lot of questions, as you'll see, and we'll have lots of opportunity to talk about that. But let's keep with the narrative in the moment. And again, so as we said, this is the premise on which the Holzer team reopens the Howard Lodge case. Okay, so there are notable moments in their investigation, and as I said, I encourage you to go and enjoy it. It's an interesting episode with some highlights worth noting, and so I've pulled some of those things out here. So, if taken at face value, and I do, The cameras capture a convincing mist-like apparition on the landing. It moves towards the stairs to the attic where the team is actively investigating. The reaction from the crew when reviewing this footage, to me, seems extremely genuine. Surprised at their own video capture. Cindy actually says, "I can't believe what I'm seeing." And in my mind, I'm like, you're a ghost hunter. This should be pretty normal, right? To see ghostly footage. But if you've watched enough of these shows, you know it's not. Her facial reactions are ones of astonishment. It's priceless. I mean, I have some history with truth-telling techniques.
Yes,
I'll leave it there.
You do.
Okay, so they convinced me. They were genuine. This was, and if you recall, do you remember me explaining the episode to you?
Yes,
and we
sat down.
I said we sat down and like, now watch her face.
Yeah,
that is not somebody that's expecting to see the fake footage they cooked up, right? Now,
right.
That's still possible.
If nothing else, they certainly sprung it on her. Yeah.
Potentially.
Not that I'm
so
saying
it was
that's what
genuine.
Her reaction does come across.
I believe them. And I just choose to believe them. So it's frankly the best. So, whatever you think about it, it's frankly the best video evidence that I've seen from one of these TV shows. It is exactly what one would expect or want to see from these shows. But of course, we rarely do. It's no orb. So
right. No, it's not an orb.
Yeah. Go take a look.
As a skeptic, which I tend to be first and foremost, I will admit that it's astonishingly coincidental.
Yeah, and if it's a gag, it's well done.
Yeah.
I mean,
if they're lying, they're real. That's really bad. Please don't just fabricate evidence on your ghost show.
Well,
that's really low. But I don't think they are.
I'd hate to learn if they did, but I don't think they did.
No, it's definitely some really really thought-provoking.
It's compelling.
Video.
And in hindsight, looking back, as again I said, I sort of sampled from these shows, and this is one of literally hundreds where this was the most impressive, and I actually exclaimed out loud when I saw it myself. So if they're trying to make an entertaining television show, it was a success. Okay, so moving along, there is an EVP that they capture. I think there's a couple of EVPs, but one in particular points to the theme of returning, and I don't think I've introduced the theme of returning yet, but it's a whisper, and it says, "He will come home." It's quite clear as far as EVPs. I think they would call it a Class A.
EVPs go, sure.
Well, this one it's clear. It's not a garble. They're not guessing. You can hear it. And again, this episode seems to be chock full. So the psychic impressions Cindy receives, they do lose a little impact, not because of her, but in the editing process. But she does guide the team well, and the personal experiences the teammates have are pretty standard and convincing. That's pretty much like what you'd expect. Now, the team sends tech lead Shane Pittman into the basement, where he encounters an angry presence, right? I mean, he feels it. We see him, of course, in the light of the infrared, but he's bumbling around. Well, not bumbling, but moving carefully, trying to make his way, because it's dark to him. So Shane reports, and indeed, we see him fall onto a concrete slab and cut his arm. So we'll just call it aggressive. He claims he was pushed. So there's stuff to look at there in the episode. Go look at it. Now, the story of the show surrounds Chris Emery and his connection with the house. And this is really the core of the story that I think the Holzer Files goes after, because it's a new theme for me. If there are others, maybe I was just impressed by their visual evidence, but to me, it's the core of the story. It is unique.
It is definitely a unique piece of the story. Like, the video is shocking. But as you said, that's kind of the thing we tune into a ghost show to see.
Right.
And just don't see it as often as we'd like.
And then,
but this story's
they
eerie.
land a left, and then the haymaker comes. And we're going to cover that when we return. Okay. We'll be right back, folks. we're back. Let's pick up that thread. The most interesting part of the story of Howard Lodge, and I'm glad you said that, John, as the resident skeptic. It is an interesting aspect, and so we're going to cover that now.
Well, I come for the stories.
Yeah,
sure.
Sure.
I can be a skeptic. I could be a Debbie Downer through these whole things, and try to nitpick stuff. Why do that? People experience things. They definitely experience things. That intrigues me. Mm-hmm. They are experiencing these things in some kind of conversation with history. So these new experiences therefore become part of the history of the house. So
since you went there, let's look at the idea that sensitive people are brought to the house to sense what's there. Hans himself believed that sensitive people are the ones that could pick up on these things, potentially saying that not everyone can, which is interesting, right? And of course, we could stray into, and I'm throwing a football pass forward to our episode on the Kabbalion and Hermetic knowledge and philosophy. But the idea there is that the mind is everything. The all is mind, and that we create our realities, and whatever those creations are, they include spirits potentially. So anyway, we learn that Chris Emery, son of Jacqueline, has dreamed of Howard Lodge every night since the day he left as a 15-year-old teen in 1973.
That's a long time, man.
Think about that.
That's a lifetime.
That's a lot of dreams, too. That's a lot of dreams. That's every night.
That's a long time.
That is. That sounds exhausting.
It does. I know I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, goodness. I mean, some nights need to just be like lights out. Anyway, the dreams are fond memories, right? So thankfully, these aren't nightmares, as one might imagine in a ghost story. But these are fond memories of him being on the grounds, happy and content. We also understand that it's that he is there in full hale health as a young person, right? That's in his mind's eye, and as the dreamer, that he is happy and content. We also learn Chris wants his ashes brought to the property and scattered after his death. This is something he openly admits to Dave Schrader during the investigation on the show. And so, boy, how interesting. The investigation by the Holzer team reveals a spirit, Elizabeth Betty Dorsey, longing for the return of her boys, in alignment with the Holzer findings, as we've come to see, right? And as we come to learn, not only has Chris Emery dreamt of the house, but so has the young man who once lived there after the Emerys, a man named Garth Terry. The Terrys owned the house from 1973 to 2010. Although he did not want to go on camera, his sister, Beth Terry, did. About her brother, Garth, Beth Terry tells us, and I quote, "Every night that he has a dream, which is most nights, he dreams about the house." Are you kidding me? That's incredible, isn't it?
But she doesn't say anything about her dreaming about the house. It's just the young men who leave there.
It's the men. It's the boys. The boys who
draw the connection there.
Right. But Betty wants to come home. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the theme we're pulling together. We have the psychic impressions of Betty, who is there in grief, waiting for her husband and her son to come home from war, and with ailing children.
We keep saying that, and I'm just going to go with it from here on out. But I want to note.
Oh, don't yet. Don't. If I think I know what you're saying, it comes out later. Just wait. You'll wait. There's lots of time to ask and answer questions.
Keep my mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut for the moment. And then you can let me know what I missed.
All right.
Jacqueline Emery had on dreams as well, although she does not share those dreams in those descriptions of her dreams, but she's dreaming as well, and they're odd. So that's what we get. Furthermore, Beth Terry tells Dave Schrader her testimony about experiences in the house, hearing voices that say her name. She watches doors wildly swing open. So, this is setting the stage for everyone has experienced something, or at least many people. The current owners have felt a presence. They were interviewed. They had generally odd experiences, which includes slamming doors and knocking, the typical noisy ghost kind of thing. Visitors have felt a presence, and that particular visitor mentioned she does not go upstairs anymore. But the Emerys certainly experienced the most, as far as we know. That's all that's been investigated. Okay, so who or what is haunting Howard Lodge? Well, the first name that we get is Elizabeth Betty Dorsey, née Gillis. She's also named as the Quaker Maiden in certain documents that I looked at. And this is according to Hans Holzer, and then also this is backed up by the team. Elizabeth allegedly was waiting for her husband and son to return from war. She's attending to an ailing child or children potentially. I threw this in. I will have to maybe just throw a flag on this. I think yellow fever was mentioned, but I'd have to go back and check on that.
Let me take a look and see what I got in my notes while you continue.
Yeah. Well, she paces the upper landing, right? So she's fraught and nervous and fearful and so forth. And she's associated with the disembodied sounds of the child with the labored breathing. So the next spirit that we encounter and can maybe name, but it's an unnamed male. This is what is felt in the main master bedroom. A male from the 1700s, his presence that watches and possibly is climbing the stairs for whatever reason. This is the person that Jacqueline sees in her mind's eye. So we do, moving on to the next haunting or what it could be, others, human spirits, as claimed by Jacqueline. There's no distinction given beyond the locations, male or female presences. We just don't know who else is there.
Well, Jacqueline did say that it was an 18th century gentleman that she saw in her mind's eye.
Yeah.
So we've got that.
Yeah. Okay. But I'm saying they said there's 5 spirits. That's right. 2.
All right.
And then I'm about to name a third. Yeah.
Well, I was looking ahead at my other notes to see what's going on.
They can pass through walls. Okay. They pass in front of each other. Sure. You lose count. Who's who? Who knows?
Who knows?
So the next is there's a boy named Tony.
Tony?
Yeah. He makes pizzas when you're not home. You come home and there's pepperoni pizza.
Is he in sanitation management?
He likes to sell. He makes... he's got a concrete business.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm not sure that he is substantiated anywhere. It's Chris Emery who learns the spirit's name. We'll get to that. He's witnessed on the grounds. Now, the Holzer files, Cindy, the psychic medium, receives the impression of a child running up and down the stairs. So you've got this connection of Tony that Chris talks about and the kid on the stairs that Cindy sees. She concludes the spirit created the image to give her the impression that Elizabeth is missing her boys. So it appears to infer that it's a symbolic communication as opposed to a literal one. And this is common with telepathic connections to past individuals. A lot of times the psychics will say that I can only get sort of iconic or symbolic imagery, like they're holding up a hand, they're holding up a thumb, and and you're supposed to infer what it is. So who knows? I'm no expert, as you can see.
I'm just going to go with it.
We'll just go with it.
I'm just going to go with it.
So just go with it.
I'm not going to mention that they can make up whatever they... No, I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with it.
Well, I
cold reading isn't it?
I'm
just going to keep going with it.
I'm going to pin that for another episode about symbolic communication. So next we could say someone or something else. And so about that basement, right? I mentioned it. Shane Pittman got shoved around while investigating, apparently something very aggressive down there. Cindy Kaza felt there was a burial down there and received psychic warnings when Shane was down there. Again, I have the note that it's aggressive. Hans Holzer detected the message, "You are walking on my grave." We covered that. Chris Emery, though in love with the rest of the house, Chris did not like the basement. He never experienced anything. I think someone else said he did, but whatever. But he did not have good feelings there. Honestly, who has not had, a lot of folks have bad feelings in their basement. Mine's not particularly bad, although every once in a while I run up the stairs for no good reason. So Dave Schrader suggested the fear of the basement emerged from Emery being banished to the bottom step for not completing his meals at dinner time as a boy. I got this off of the podcast where Dave has a discussion with Chris.
I saw the podcast, but I did not listen to that one.
It's an interesting psychological take on it. I'm not going to toss it out. Sure.
I like the way you did your research on that.
Dave,
thumbs up.
Thank you. I'll take that. I'll get him.
Told you we're in conversation with other podcasts now.
I get a merit, a merit badge. So, okay, here are my thoughts. It could be anything. I think it needs more investigation. However, there are a couple of overlooked elements that the show did not go into. Maybe they knew about these things. Maybe they didn't. I can imagine, because they've said that quite a bit on their podcast. This is about editing. They and being in video.
Yeah, no, I get it.
You take, you only use a fifth of what you actually shoot.
Right.
And probably even left.
It's got to fit the format.
Like a
20th. So if you've got an hour time slot, it's 40 minutes of actual content?
Yeah, and they say there's a lot of good stuff that goes on the editing room floor.
Right, and you got to shape the story. Like you could have a chaotic investigation, and now they have to make a story out of it,
right?
In order to.
So they pulled that narrative together.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But these are the ones that they didn't touch upon. So in the National Historic Register application PDF that I was able to pull down, this sentence can be found. Indian mounds have also been located on the adjacent property. And I find that fascinating.
Which was part of the original property. That is one thing that comes across in the
property lines. Ghosts don't follow them, but yes, you're correct. The 500 acres was parceled down. I think the house currently sits on about, I want to say 15 acres. I think I have it down in my notes.
It's very clear that this was truly a plantation-sized property originally, and it has been continuously narrowed down.
It could be 4 properties over. The point is, adjacent to the property are Indian mounds, and we know those to be burials potentially. Some folks may even say, are there giants in them? Who knows? They've probably been leveled by now. No. They were probably, anyway, we're going to move on from that. That's too interesting. So the next obvious era entry for me are slave era hauntings. Or hauntings that have roots in the slave era. Right. So there are slave quarters on the property, and the basement was also used for that purpose. That comes directly from that document for the Historic Register application, right? Mm-hmm. Not sure how this was known, but that's probably pretty standard. It would be interesting to find this out. Frankly, there's unlimited potential for angry spirits of slaves to remain there from an unlimited number of potential abuses. So, we can't make any assumptions there.
No,
but
no, we shouldn't. We have no idea
how they were treated.
Yes, and there's certainly a spectrum. Like nobody is going to deny that the simple enslavement, the ownership of another human being, is wrong, and therefore bad. But there's a lot of spectrum for how the individuals were treated by the various families they were owned by. And then the other interesting thing that I think is overlooked is that there are various times when this property is handed over to tenant farmers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not just and the house.
And that could be virtually anybody.
Anybody, yes. But what's sort of left unsaid is that these tenant farmers at these various points in history where that happens are probably little better than wage slaves, mm-hmm. and they too may have been a minority, either blacks
potentially,
or who are may be free, but now they're sort of still beholden to this land.
It could be, Well, so to use the lore of your ghost crowds, it could be an elemental, which is strictly just a spirit of the earth that is angry. It's unlimited. More has to be done there. Yeah. So what about that Ouija board, the witch board, John?
Oh yeah, that's it. That is another pen. Thank you. That is another pen.
It is. So okay. I get to it right there. Okay. And so, and again, there's plenty of room at the bottom of our pages here for the questions. And we're going to bring it all together, and you'll have plenty of opportunity to jump in.
Okay.
Chris Emery shared with the Holzer team a memory of using the Ouija board during the time he lived in Howard Lodge. They contacted the spirits of the house and learned about life there. That's where they discovered the name of the boy, Tony. They ended up with a different name for the female spirit. I meant to go back and get what it was, but it did not match Elizabeth. So as a child, Emery and I guess the siblings were playing with the board, and they came away with a different spirit for what's there. But again, there's 5, so who knows? This can be forgiven, for the whole nature of that oracle is very imprecise, and they're kids after all. But nonetheless, and a Ouija board was in use. So let's bring it all together. Is the soul of Howard Lodge, Elizabeth Betty Dorsey, the Quaker maiden, mother of children, stricken by sickness and passing away in the house, leaving a residue of grief, fear, and worry while her husband and son fight in a dreadful war? Well, records show that Elizabeth Betty Dorsey, née Gillis, died in Anne Arundel County on 10 July 1773 at the age of 51. This does not appear to line up with the place of death being the house. 1775 to 1783 were the years of the Revolution, but I guess there could be other wars in reference, but she wasn't even in the house, apparently. But we don't know. I don't know if she could have died in the house and the record was captured in Anne Arundel County. I just don't know. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, after death, did her spirit return to the house to languish there in her grief and longing for children that passed there? Or did she actually die there, but somehow the death was recorded in Anne Arundel County? That we talked about that. I don't think that's likely, but again, we don't know. Was Elizabeth or something else stirred awake by Jacqueline's renovations, encouraged by the quite obvious love Jacqueline poured back into the old pile of ballast bricks? Or did Chris Emery's Ouija board practice wake up or draw in interested entities? Was it a little of both? If one is true, it doesn't mean the other one can't also be true. Was Elizabeth or something else entirely overjoyed by having Garth, Terry, and Chris Emery simply in the house? Or is Chris Emery or Garth Terry a reincarnation of one of Elizabeth Dorsey's children?
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
This was suggested by a listener on Dave Schrader's Darkness Radio podcast. Interesting idea. Or did Elizabeth, trapped there in grief, become inappropriately attached to Chris and Garth? Does she, wittingly in spirit inhabit their regularly occurring dreams about the house, calling them home, back to the home they truly loved? Chris Emery certainly has nothing but love for Howard Lodge. We know he wants for his ashes to be spread on the grounds upon his death. You know, it's worth noting the Emerys, Roy and Jacqueline Emery, divorced in 1971. Jacqueline got the house. She remarried. Jacqueline Emery sold the house to Luke and Jane Terry in 1973. Chris was approximately 15 when he and his mother left the property. Is Chris simply dreaming about and recalling memories from a formative time in his life? Perhaps that time is seared into his memory from the trauma of their divorce. Maybe for Chris, this was the happiest time of his life, when mom and dad got along, or at least were under the same roof. Or is there some other unknown spirit affecting the lives of people beyond the property, using the warm, fond memories as perhaps a lure? Whatever's in the basement might have an axe to grind, a debt to settle. Seems rather angry, and purportedly angry that its grave is being walked over. It's believed the basement was used as slave quarters. So what of the 7 slaves on record transferred to Edward Dorsey from his father? Did Sam, Samson, Toby, Jack, Hagar, Charles, or Jenny spend long hours there living out their lives in that subterranean space? Were they fond of Howard Lodge? Was it actually they that filled the house with love and longing, only to have the weight of slavery create anger in the basement? Or a full mixture of deep emotion? Is one or some of them buried there, their bones forgotten to time? There are more questions than answers, that's for certain. So let's wrap this up. You know, it's more than just impressive Flemish and English brick bonds that lodge this Howard architectural gem into our minds and onto our civil lists of important places. It's also the strong bonds of family and home that linger long after separation, that are the most indelible, indeed, as well in our dreams. Chris says he adores the place and that the dreams are a way for him to stay connected to Howard Lodge. If the spirits that haunt Howard Lodge are intruding in Chris Emery's dreams, he doesn't mind. He welcomes it. If there is a sinister side to it calling Chris's immortal soul to linger there forever after, well, I guess we'll wait and find out. Maybe in 50 years, someone will reopen the Holzer file case on Howard Lodge and we'll see who has gone home to stay forever. Forever. Very nice. Fun fact.
Fun facts.
Did you know that Chris Emery was a series of chief White House ushers in charge of household staff, the butler of the people?
Actually, I did run into that.
Did you run into that?
In the research,
yeah, the guy has got a heck of a history.
Uh-huh.
He's an interesting dude.
Yep.
So what do you think, John? Where's your brain at?
I feel like some of these questions could be answered if we had the time, which we don't.
You mean like did she actually die in the house?
To go do some research. Yes. Like, well, so from the from just the history I worked up on this house, it's clear that the Dorsey family spent a lot of time in Anne Arundel County. That this was this was the residence that was given to
Edward.
Right. It was given to various generations as, you're getting married, here's your house.
Right.
But they didn't all live there.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, the Dorseys of this portion of the clan were merchants in Baltimore, and they had properties away from the city, so they didn't have to live in the among the Hmong.
It's really sad that, growing up here, we didn't get more deep Maryland history.
Mr. Morgan had every opportunity.
Yeah, clear. Well, yeah, but not necessarily while we were doing AP European history. So,
I took U.S. history with Mr. Morgan.
He did a good job, and our old history teacher retired from teaching high school and then went on to write a series of local history books in Delaware.
Oh, he was a reenactor at Fort McHenry. So you may have run into him. If you've been there and you've seen reenactors, you might have seen Mr. Morgan.
But he did his duty by doing good local history. It just wasn't local here. But I feel like there was a lot about the Dorseys that maybe we should have learned at the time. I also think we could probably narrow down this bit about the Dorsey men being away at war. Who it was, did they go? First of all, I think we could find out, did they go?
Right. Well, here's what I ran across there. Right. So I didn't capture. I may have captured the link, but I skimmed over the idea that the Dorseys put an inordinate number of officers into the ranks.
Officers. Yeah.
Well, and that's they're officers. These are established men. Yeah. Established family. There's a lot of them. So, just by the numbers. And we're not talking, these armies numbered in the low thousands. Yeah. It wasn't like there was hundreds of thousands of men.
There were hundreds of thousands, but not many, like 200,000 at a time. And that's spread out across the whole continent.
Right. Right.
So the time period we're looking here is the end of the colonial period, the beginning of the Republic. The family moves into the house in the 1750s. The French and Indian War begins in 1754.
Yeah, I said there's other conflicts that.
Yeah, it could be, and the kids are born from if I look at this correctly, 1751 to 1768. So it doesn't seem like he's away at the French and Indian War. Plus, Maryland was pretty far away from that. And I just yesterday bought a really boring looking book on Maryland and the French and Indian War.
We'll bring as much of that.
I have not had a chance to read it,
but 5 basically sentences that we can squeeze out of it would be great.
It's basically saying, Maryland was far away, but it still contributed, and it was angsting about not being involved in the war.
Yeah, well, we do know that it's one sentence that I read. The Dorseys contributed officers to the Corps. Something that we can dig in on. But I say
the revolution. You're right. Is a little. It's late for Elizabeth and Edward, but maybe not for their kids.
I think the time.
I don't know.
Actually, I'll tell you.
Edward Hill Dorsey is their kid. They move in 1781.
I was happy with the Dorsey that I found
Yeah.
in Ellicott City, not connected to the house, but
Right. I just feel like so this is a limitation, and again, you and I have talked about how we're just starting out. We'll figure this out and we'll figure out where we need to go. But for the listeners, somebody out there is going to be a real nut and go, why don't you guys know about A?
Well, and they can let us know.
Yes. First of all, please do.
This was do that.
Yeah.
No,
and point us at the resources.
Well, someone that wants to illustrate the history that we missed, that's fine. But we focused on the ghost story, and we hope you enjoyed the ghost story.
We did a good job with that. Yeah, I mean it's got some unique elements. It's a good ghost story. It's a really solid ghost story. What I like about this story is that most ghost stories are a struggle for modern busy people to remember something about the past. Mm-hmm. They want to remember something desperately about the past, about the place they are in now. Mm-hmm. And it comes through imperfectly. And that's what you get in a ghost story. And that's what's coming here. So, yes, while I am sort of lamenting that we could probably do better in our primary source research of the history, that theme that's what a good ghost story in America is about comes out quite well.
But this again, this is a ghost story, and there folks are covering the ghost story, and so we're certainly the history lines up well. In some cases, it may not line up with it, and that's okay.
And you hit all the high points of a good American ghost story.
Sure.
Are there Indian burial grounds? Yes, there may be Indian burial grounds. Were there enslaved peoples involved? Yes, there were enslaved people involved.
There's more to do.
Was it a plantation? Yes, it was a plantation.
It had Flemish and English bonds, for Christ's sake.
I mean,
you can't have a colonial home if it doesn't have an English running bond.
As imperfect as the research, and it's my fault too, may have been on this in terms of the history, this is the perfect first ghost story we could have told.
We didn't get any history wrong, per se. The history of the house is there, right? And what we focused on was the story that was told. Yeah. I think it does water down the story a little bit to say, well, that wasn't right. She wasn't there.
No, you're right.
We can go back and have a history podcast where we would say,
why ruin a good story with the facts?
Actually, Betty, Betty had hated her children.
Everybody
knew it.
To get out.
That Quaker maiden, she was actually an Iron Maiden, boy, and who knows what we would find. Yeah. But
that's also true. That kind of thing can happen when you go do the research on these, and that's also an interesting story.
And I will enjoy running across and tripping across Howard Lodge when I pick up and open other books as we move forward with our episodes. So speaking of episodes, where are we going next, John? Wink, wink, wink.
So next, I believe, will be
a super duper paranormal story that... No,
not necessarily. But I will tease you with the conspiratorial phrase, black helicopters.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Aggie, and I'd
like,
dude,
we did.
We got to get your brain checked.
We did black Aggie.
I know we did.
We're going to do black helicopters.
You know we did black helicopters. Okay.
Black helicopters.
Gotcha. Well,
but I'm
looking forward to it.
It's still a good story, and it's still about a hidden world.
And it's from your days of college, too,
my halcyon days of college.
Halcyon days.
How I don't remember them.
So I did throw a pass. Maybe some of you heard it. We'll talk next episode about where we go after that, and then So there's a lot to look forward to. If you're enjoying yourself, and we sincerely hope you are, thank you so much for being out there and listening. And if you're listening now, it's like an hour and 20 minutes in. So thank you for hanging on. We will see you on the next episode. In the meantime, if you don't have time...
Were we supposed to do a second break?
No.
Oh, okay.
Just the one.
Okay.
Just the one. So, gang, remember, we're going into the unknown for you, especially if you don't have time to. So consider picking up the next episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's lodged in my brain.